I'm Sarah. I work at Shortlist and do recruitment in RPA. And Jonathan, do you want to?
Yeah, so I'm Jonathan Surplus. I'm the IT Applications Manager at a lender based in Cheadle called Together.
Thank you. And Danny?
Yeah, good afternoon. My name's Danny Malin. I was a former interim head of automation at O2, helped build the Centre of Excellence at BP Group, and also former head of European head of smart technology at Bank of New York Mellon.
Thank you. And Jabir? Sorry, Dan?
Oh, hi. Dan Levin. I'm the technical lead for the RPA team in IT services in the University of Manchester.
Thank you very much. And Jasper?
Hi, yeah, I'm Jas Gill. I'm currently living a life of leisure. I used to run the automation and RPA team at Lloyd's before deciding to go travelling, and I'm coming back to COVID, so I'm just coming back to and getting used to life.
Over to you, Paul.
Okay. Hi there. Nice to meet you all. My name is Paul Wyman. I'm the RPA architect at Dorset, NHS Dorset CCG. That's the clinical commissioning group. And it's been my first role within an automation environment of this sort of size. The NHS has been quite late to the game for RPA, and I was put onto Thoughtonomy or Blue Prism Cloud by Microsoft, because for the past 4 years we've been trying to automate various different processes using logic apps and flows and stuff like that, and we were just getting nowhere at all with it. So we spoke with Microsoft and they suggested talk to Thoughtonomy, and that's how I got into working with the Blue Prism products. Just to give you a bit of background about the CCG, clinical commissioning groups sit between NHS England and the acute hospitals and the GP providers and anybody else who provides a service for patients. And basically we get all the money from the NHS, they give it to us, we pass it straight on to the people who service the contracts for us. So we have quite a low number of staff in the CCG. We have around about, I think, 480 at the moment, and plus lay members. So we are sort of managing a lot of contracts between different organisations, managing lots of patient flow data and stuff like that. And I think that sort of covers the sort of role that we have at that point. With the new changes to the way the NHS is working at the moment, the CCGs are going to be merging together, and we're turning into integrated care systems, or ICSs, and that brings together the public health, the acute hospitals, the GPs and whatever, and we're all going to start working together under one umbrella. So when I took on the Blue Prism products, I brought them in at the level of ICS. So we bought a tenancy which any hospital and any GP can have access to. So we're doing a few pilot projects at the moment to prove what we can do. And that sort of covers the sort of the size of what we're doing at the moment. The first projects we started with were contracting, because that's probably the biggest area of pain for ourselves. We have a team of people who are continuously managing contracts, all sorts of areas, from nurses, ambulances and stuff like that, any contract at all. And whenever they negotiate a contract, they have to go to an NHS website and fill in all the details about the provider, who's the service they're providing, X, Y, and Z. They've got all the information in spreadsheets, but they literally have to read the spreadsheet and copy it into the website and then download some template documents which they can pass on. So that was the very first project we did. It saved approximately 1,400 hours per year, which is half the cost of the Blue Prism Cloud if you equate it to user hours. So that was a great success, and that was the pilot that we ran first of all. Now with the COVID situation at the moment, there's obviously a lot more pressing automations that we can be running. And the project which we've got going at the moment is the COVID antibody testing results. So you're aware of that you heard the antibody testings going on, and it started at the members of staff who work at the acute hospitals, so front-end staff, and it's gradually easing its way down through the lesser mortals like myself and the CCG and other administration staff, and it's about to go live with GPs, opticians, and anybody who has any impact with patients, and key workers such as teachers, etc. So August the 10th, we're going live with 29,000 people need to be tested. And at present, the process they were using was they did a partial automation. They automated using Microsoft Forms to gather the patient details who requested the test. And the resulting Excel spreadsheets were forwarded onto the test centers for processing. That was fine, but then they get the results coming back and they now have two spreadsheets. One spreadsheet has the test results with the patient name, the result, their NHS number, and the other spreadsheet has the patient name, email address, SMS number, and whatever. So we needed to combine the two. We have a senior member of staff who's receiving both pieces of data and spending an hour and a half a day doing it. So we created an automation using Blue Prism, and it takes between 10 and 20 seconds to consolidate the two spreadsheets and reply to everybody on the list with either an SMS or an email, depending on what solution or what communication method they requested. And that is literally where I am at the moment. We are just finishing that off. We're adding in a bit of translation into the process because we've just had a request from NHS Southwest. They would like to use our automation because it's already up and running and they haven't got a system yet. But they do request that patients should be able to ask for the response in any language. So Blue Prism supports 60 on auto translation. So that's what we're doing at the moment. So I've got a busy weekend coming up. That's literally it. Any questions?
I was wondering how the Centre of Excellence works actually with the NHS, because there's so many different trusts, isn't there? And you're creating your own processes. Is that centralised anywhere? Yeah,
it's my team. That's it. Well, that's all of us doing the whole process for Dorset. We have got together with Darren Atkins at SNEFT of in East Suffolk and various other, I think there's about 4 or 5 NHS organisations who've all got Blue Prism. And we've all got together, we made a pact, right, we're going to, any automations we develop, we're going to package them up for free, put them in our knowledge, in our NHS marketplace and share between each other. It has to be done that way. NHS for years has been paying other people to perform projects, which I can think of a couple now, which I won't mention, but they should have been leading edge about 10 years ago, but we're still waiting for them to be delivered. And you want a simple change on one. We had one actually the other day when a patient completes their data for COVID testing, not antibody, this was just testing initially. They wanted to be able to do a lookup and find from the patient's name and postcode their NHS number. So one of the systems we have has all that information in, and we asked for a very straightforward API. How long would it take you to do this? And we were given, you've got a 3-month testing plan. It's going to roll out probably in 6 months. And this was on Friday. And I said, we're going live on Monday. So basically we've got no chance, have we? And they said, no. And we're now discovering that COVID has forced so much transformation to happen so fast in the NHS. We're now acting like a proper business, I've come from finance. I used to be at Canary Wharf at Credit Suisse. So I know about doing the banking and stuff like that and how dynamic you have to be and just get on and do it and stuff. And the NHS has always been sort of stagnant almost with its IT transformation, but not now. We're flying along now, so it's very good.
How many processes have you got live, Paul, then, at the minute?
We've only got about 5, actually. We first got the Blue Prism in December. And the biggest part of the process has been connecting together all of the organisations. So we've got As I said, the robots are being shared between everybody. So I've got to train up a member of staff at minimum on each organisation. I've got 8 developers in Dorset Healthcare who are being trained up on it. Then we had to get VPN connections, and you'd be surprised at how complex it is to get a VPN connection set up in in the NHS. Some organisations are 3 months and counting, and they still haven't worked out how to do it. I know it can be done because I set up our VPN and it was 15 minutes, so it's not a tricky thing. So we're just connecting into Azure. We're using a virtual private gateway with route-based VPNs connecting to a single gateway. Very, very straightforward. So that part of the process has been the biggest. We did a big sales push on it from the point of view of let's market what Blue Prism can do. So from about June last year, I was running little presentations to different people in different organisations within the NHS, having the chief clinical information officers, the chief finance officers, getting them all together, showing them what we could do, showing them the contracts set up and whatever. Then I got Patrick Shepherd from Blue Prism to come down, and he came with Darren Atkins, and they did a Darren and Patrick show. They did a lovely presentation in 2 places in one day and went back home again. Everybody's over the moon with it. They love it. So they've all bought into it. They all know what it's about. We got the funding on the back of the NHS integrated care system transformation budget, which was getting anything out of that has been a miracle. So it's looking very bright. Should be good.
Have you had any challenges when you're sharing your objects and your processes, because other teams will have different standards, or have you all agreed on a standard?
I've sort of told them how it's going to be. So I've taken the best practices from Blue Prism and built a framework from it and said, right, we've adapted basically everybody else's frameworks. It's all common sense, and said, and this is how we're going to do it in the NHS. So most of the stuff's fairly straightforward. Darren has been very helpful with passing on his information. So literally we've just told them this is how it's going to be, you have to develop it like this and whatever, and they've all gone with it. So far anyway.
And how are you maintaining your backlog then, Paul? Who's looking after that side for new RPA candidates?
So we've got, we have again another Microsoft form which I set up, which anybody who comes up with an idea can submit an automation form. The template for that form was again a Blue Prism form, which was, sort of the basic sort of business case. Well, we want to do this process. This is how many hours it saves and whatever. And initially, because we got the funding on the back of the outpatients transformation, I have to concentrate on outpatients projects. Luckily, they overlap with a lot of other projects. And so I can get a few people working on this project, and I can work on another project as well. So that's sort of working out quite nicely. In the next stage, when we finish the next 2 outpatients projects, we're setting up a council who will look at the processes, and they're made up of members of anybody. It could be anybody in any organisation. It could be nurses to chief financial officers to managers to outpatient departments, whatever. They will all have a vote on which process they think is the most important, which is coming up next. And that was done through a Power App with just basic voting. So up comes a list of all the applications submitted. I think we're up to 142 at the moment. And people can just read through a quick note and say, oh yeah, I like that 5, that one, 3, and so on. So that's how we're using the sort of business council.
And are you using the COE to sort of prioritise stuff?
COE?
Yeah, the Centre of Excellence to prioritise your candidates.
Yeah, so we've we were taking most of the decisions being made from what we call the council, the business council. So that's coming through, but we will eventually have overall decision making on it. So there's 5 members of the sort of senior team which oversee the whole thing.
Right.
So we'll be defining strategy, and as long as it fits in with the strategy, we'll go with what they want.
Yeah, it's interesting because I know that we use UiPath, and I know they've got a product called Automation Hub,
Right.
which is a sort of a bit similar to your form you've created that allows employee-driven ideas or central excellence ideas to be submitted, and then it goes through that sort of standard assessment questions asked, and it calculates the return on investment, the FTE saving, the cost saving, etc. You can plug your own costs into it. So your license fees, your team costs, you mentioned 8 developers, and then it will obviously flatten out over time, as you start, putting more and more automation through it. So we're just on the trial license of that at the moment. We're just looking at it. It seems to be pretty good. And it's not user based license either. So it's just for your organization. So you could basically just start and set the COE up and just let them drive the ideas, and you can workflow it through then to the individual teams to prioritize and to take forward.
That sounds very interesting.
Give the whole employee, so we got 700 odd employees, you could give the whole employees access to it, and they can submit, and it has sort of league tables and a bit like a sort of a gamification type piece on it, where you get badges for the number of things you've had successful, number of things you submit. So it looked quite a useful tool. I don't know if Blue Prism's got anything similar.
I haven't seen anything yet, but we're still not on the latest version of the main interface at the moment, because we were one of the very last Thoughtonomy customers. So I think they're waiting for us to catch up in some of the processes. But
yeah,
certainly I've made a note of it because you've given me some ideas for how I can automate our cost calculator.
Yeah,
I believe Blue Prism's got process discovery. And you fill in a lot of metrics about your processes, and then within a day or two it returns like a big PDF with all graphs in it of all the ideal candidates. If you build this first, then the object, this one can be shared with this one, so this one will be faster. I think it's called the process discovery.
I'll have a look at that.
Sounds similar, Gavin, I think.
Yeah.
I would imagine it's similar. You can put components into the Automation Hub suite. It has a lot of those sorts of elements in it as well, and you can share components. You can then sort of put in which departments you're developing again, so you can get a flavour for which ones are live, which ones are in ideation, which ones are, you've put through the certain phases. So it looks quite a useful tool. I think it also integrates with something called Task Capture, which is effectively a recording software within UiPath to allow the process to be recorded. And then it plugs into the various templates that you produce as part of your governance model. So if you're producing something like a business design document, you can plug your own templates into it, and it will pre-fill and complete those templates for you as well. So it seems to be that a lot of these, top level Gartner Magic Quadrant companies are really getting their act together with the sort of software that they're now pushing out to this sort of space and arena.
I know that I've seen some features from the latest version which we haven't got, and I'm desperate to get hold of. But apart from the fact that Microsoft put us in touch with Blue Prism, that the original reason I went with them was a lot of the logic apps and stuff I was using. I was using the cognitive services from Azure, and with Blue Prism, that's all included within the license price. And I'm not positive, but I was probably running pretty close to about the 90 grand fee on some of the cognitive stuff I was doing in our Azure. So I've saved some money there. And one of the first projects we'll be doing is going to be for dermatology referrals. Dermatology before COVID happened was the biggest submission of any referral, because if you go into the doctors and say, I'm not sure if this mold is cancerous or not, doctors will go, let's just err on caution and just get you in there anyway. And the way it used to or should work is they take a picture, it goes through the referral process, and the consultants look at it and say yes or no. However, most of the hospitals, when the referral comes in, they print it out and they take it round to the consultant, printed in 130 DPI, and get them to see if that's the right thing. And if they need a referral, then they have to then scan it into their patient record. So that's one of the outpatients transformation things we're doing. And as a byproduct, I'd written an app called Mole Melanoma, which not very imaginative, but it literally uses the custom vision API to machine learn pictures of moles, melanomas, skin tags, freckles, and whatever. And it gives you a score based on whether it thinks it's a melanoma. So if we can take those scans coming in the first place, we can then triage them and give them to the consultants, say, these top 3 you probably want to look at first today before looking at anything else. And that, I was warned against doing it because consultants wouldn't like the job being taken away from them. And when I hinted that I could probably do something like that, they snapped my arm off and said, yes, please do, because it's going to make our life so much simpler. So that's going to be a good success, hopefully.
What challenges did you have when you were capturing the processes down to detail with the different teams? Getting sign off in the NHS. That was painful.
Yeah, the biggest challenges are firstly just working with the different teams, because some teams are very willing to help and some are very sort of wary of the black magic voodoo that you've just turned up with. But once you get into it, it was looking at the way that Blue Prism is going to work with the different interfaces and applications. It was great. It was really our limitations to learn how to do stuff. And again, Darren was superb with that, because he said to me way back when, I've never found a process or a system that you cannot interface with. Some have been an absolute pain in the ass, but you still can do it. So whenever I've come across a sticky situation, I've asked him and he's come back and he goes, oh yeah, we did that. And he'll send me a skill from the Blue Prism knowledge base and say, try using that instead, and that may help. So there's so many different ways of doing it, and I'm sure UiPath and everybody else are exactly the same. There's so many different options to go this way or that way, and it's helpful to have somebody that you can just ask questions about, and they can give you the quick learning solution for you. So
yeah, I've started using tools now, some AI-driven tools that we can put on SMEs laptops or the desktops, and then when they're running a case, they hit record, and then it's passed back to an AI engine which clears out all the noise. So maybe they've done 2 or 3 cases, they forgot to press stop, they've gone to an email, so it clears out all the noise and gives you all the variations in the process.
Oh, that's good.
So, but say the longer it runs on somebody's machine, obviously the better the variance you're going to capture. But it's always that 1000th case that throws you off. That you haven't coded for. Yeah. As long as you got your framework right and you're bubbling up the errors and it's capturing it, then it's all good. Yeah, good.
Excellent.
So is this project having an effect across others then? You mentioned the dermatology one that's sort of on hold. It's going to be ongoing, is it? With
Yeah, pretty much. The outpatients project is basically what we're doing for dermatology. Is going to be the same for all disciplines. So one of the first people that I was working with about 4 years ago was a consultant laryngologist called Reza Nuri. He's based down, I think he's now a professor at Southampton University, but he's still working at Poole Hospital as well. And he's an incredible guy. He's Iranian. He seems to be like a total mad professor. He's like scatty hair and everything, and he sort of switches between subjects quite a lot. I get on fine with him. I don't see what the problem is. We just sort of gel. But he came to me and he said, I want to sort of fix this outpatients process. The printing and the scanning. He said, it's useless. I can't tell if somebody's got a hedgehog in the throat or cancerous lump. It's just the detail's not there. So that's where we built the Logic app and built the flows through that method there. When we were talking about what he could do, so I say he's a laryngologist, he's trying all sorts of stuff. This is why he's a professor as well. So if you walk into his surgery, he can get you to repeat a fixed sentence that he's written out. Read the following sentence, he says. You read it out, and he can diagnose about 5 different conditions with your throat just by hearing the way you speak. And it's the way that your voice catches, like tightens up and stuff like that. And I said, well, how do you know that that's not how they've always spoken? He said, no. He said, there's subtle differences. You can pick up on it. So that amazed me. And then we were chatting a bit further and he said, if I can get you to read 5 sentences, he's got these 5 sentences to read out. He said he can come back with about 30 odd different medical conditions, and one of them is Parkinson's. And this is the thing he's trialing at the moment. And he said his problem is if he goes under a bus, nobody else knows how to do this, and he's training people to learn these inflections in the voices. And I said, oh, surely we can do this with machine learning and whatever. So hence why he's now over at Portsmouth or Southampton, or wherever it is, whichever university. And we're working with them as well. So the concept would be we can use something like Blue Prism with a telephone bot. You could ring up to book yourself an appointment at a GP practice. The GP say, oh, please wait, there's a queue. By the way, could you just read the following sentence? And you could read that, get somebody to read that sentence out, and it could diagnose potential of having Parkinson's for that patient. And we're not doing anything like that yet, but that potential is just there. And that's just so exciting. Literally, you know, a couple of bots like that, in a matter of a couple of days, you could triage virtually the whole of Dorset, let alone the rest of the country. So he's a very fascinating person. If you ever go see a speech from him, if you get a presentation, you should go and find that, go and watch it. But be prepared. There's some gory pictures in his presentation. He has he has no filter at all. And you could be sitting there listening quite happily, and then suddenly, bleh, like a throat operation going on in front of you. But he's a fascinating person. So that's, I think, the sort of direction we're going to be heading in. We can use automation to start diagnosing some serious conditions and making life better for people. So.
How are you managing?
Sorry, I was just going to say for that, are you, so the bots are just your interface thing, aren't they, really, rather than the technology to do the actual work is,
yeah.
So you're just using the bot as a human interface rather than a...
Exactly, so we can use machine language. I mean, Reza says that he's got thousands of recordings of people reading sentences. And we could just take all of those, put it through machine learning and say, right, well, all of these are Parkinson's. All of these have got acid reflux, which also causes a constriction. And the following are all cancer. So it wouldn't be hard to do it. And when the machine learning systems are in place now to do that. So,
well, I guess when I've listened to some of that is, do you actually need a bot for some of this stuff? Because I guess if you automated it, you would need the bot to replace a human, because a human's doing a job that doesn't need to be done. A lot of the interfaces in today's world, you could just, you know, you could have your telephony with an automated thing that just directs straight to the thing. Why would you put a
bot to do it?
Bots can only give you a factor or you know, I think from the information, say Paul, you have those recordings, based on that information, it may have a confidence factor of 7 or 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
Even with 7 or 8 out of 10, you've still got to have a human in the loop to back that up. It may have a confidence factor of 5, but that means confidence factor of 5, it could be one of many possible scenarios. So that's where you use a bot to sort the wheat from the chaff. So you get rid of all the things where there are no problems, and then you add a confidence factor on potential problems, which means you've actually reduced the workload already for the consultant. So I think it works great in that, using the bot to filter out the white noise.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, with Reza, he's if you have a cancer diagnosis, you have a 2-week, what's called a 2-week wait. You get put onto a 2-week appointment, and you will be seen within 2 weeks. And in most cases, you'll get treated. It's been a bit different during COVID because a lot of the stuff's been held back, and I know they are still trying. But with Reza, he was saying that he gets patients come in for initial appointment. And that initial appointment could be what we would call an advice and guidance. It could be somebody just coming in and they've got acid reflux, but they've never had it before, and nobody's giving them Gaviscon, so they could be sent away. But it could be somebody who needs to answer a 30-page questionnaire. And the 30-page questionnaire we created as a form, and when a patient was referred, the bot looks at the referral and says, oh, this is one for Reza's team. He would, in this particular scenario, he would want, you know, if it said something in the medical record like, this patient's been on Gaviscon for 3 months and they've now been put on omeprazole and it still hasn't helped, they've still got acid reflux or symptoms of, the robot can pick up on those keywords and then send an SMS or an email to the patient requesting can you fill in this 30-page form? And when it's submitted, you'll get an appointment. And they come in and they're told if they filled in all of the questions in a certain manner and it's the diagnosis from that needs a biopsy, they could be told 24 hours before, don't eat, come in with, don't eat sort of since before 9 o'clock at the night before or something like that. And they could have biopsy then, and that'll be their very first appointment, the first time they meet a consultant. So that could save 3 days just in a 2-week, and that can be critical. So I think that's one of the main reasons I've seen for the bots is you can automate this sort of logic of getting questions out there. Dermatology team are the same. The urology team, they have a set of questions they would like to send out, and they just want exactly the same process again. They want a bot to look through, read the patient record and look for keywords. So I know there's other better ways of doing that, but anyway.
No, I was just wondering, are you relying on, is your bot an assistant, or is it an interactive, or is it just looking at the forms and scanning the form and then doing the processing, or have you actually got assistants to help with the form filling?
Well, at the moment, we've got people live doing it as well. So we're looking to be developing these things so that the bots will replace people having to do the job, but the people are process owners. So if the bot comes back with an error or question, they can forward it to the process owner, and the process owner can then be the final sort of look at it and make the decision. But as you said, as Danny says about the sorting the wheat from the chaff, you can get rid of 80% and process those automatically. Happy days. We've got the outpatient department in Poole has, I think, 8 members of staff who sit there all day long looking at referrals, printing them out, writing a little note on the front, walking them around the hospital and back again, scanning them back in again, and that's all they do. And they're absolutely desperate for that part of their job to be taken away. They've got so much other things. A lot of them have medical qualifications of some form or another, so we can use their skills better. So anybody can print out. So we do that with the robots instead.
Yeah, sure.
How do you report on the ROI with all of this then, Paul?
Power BI. So I've got every single process we automate. We've obviously gone through the business analysis process. We know every single step, how long it takes a person to complete each step. So in every process I have, this step would have taken X amount of time, and it feeds back up, bowls back up through the system to the process at the top, where it collects the final. This process would have taken an hour and a half, but we've just done it in 30 seconds. And then it posts that into a SharePoint list with name of the process, if it was submitted by email, which domain it came from. So we know, for example, it could have come from one of the hospitals. So with the antibody tests, we're going to be hopefully processing antibody tests for the southwest of England. So it could be various number of hospitals. And all of that information is collected together, and then Power BI takes that up and produces a dashboard. Pretty little dashboard, just shows you the basic information, how many hours we've saved. And that's what I give to my Chief Financial Officer. She's got access to that 24/7. She can make sure that we're doing the right thing. I think to pay for the robots and myself time, I think it's 4,500 hours in a year to save. We're just starting up now, but the COVID antibody testing is probably going to clear about 3,000 hours in the next few months. And when it goes public, it'll probably be just running continuously. So
you put every time the process runs into it, do you push that into Power BI? Yeah.
So it's
direct feed straight out of Blue Prism.
Yeah, I just I set up a webhook in SharePoint, and then did an HTTP post request for the figures to come straight out of the process and just chuck it straight in. I know there's probably more elegant ways, but
yeah, we were looking at the same sort of thing. We were going to use Power BI at O2. The problem was we were actually using 2 platforms. We're using Automation Anywhere and Blue Prism,
right.
So just to add an extra layer in. And the problem was you can get a direct feed out of one, but you can't translate the feed across both. So that's why we decided on, say, a Power BI. But yeah, we were looking at direct feed straight from the back end. So we'd have it live and dynamic.
Sure. I would personally like to use Splunk better than Power BI, because Splunk is dynamic, and I like the idea of a graph moving up and down, and also cascading that back up through to NHS Digital, and then finally up to the government, and Matt Hancock sitting there with his iPad seeing what's going on. I like that sound better. I know that Splunk has just been purchased for the southwest of England for its business flow process. So
we use Splunk, Paul, but we haven't plugged the UiPath stuff into it at all yet. But I know the infrastructure team get massive use out of it, and they're singing their praises, I think, with some of the reporting on servers and that type of stuff. So
it looks cool as well, doesn't it?
We need to probably move to that next step of, we've got 15 processes live now, so we probably need to work out, really how we start showing some of that information a bit better. Because it pays for itself then, doesn't it? It's an easy sell. We've just renewed our license for the next 3 years, which was a fairly straightforward sell really for us. But I think having that quality of data that you've just spoken about and presented in a format that Splunk can do would make that meeting a lot easier, I think, when I go to seek that sort of those costs.
My financial director, she would, if she didn't have to have a meeting to discuss a report and she could just look at it on her iPad, she's happy with that. So, yes, I like Splunk. It looks really cool. It's a bit, I think, just from having the graphs moving all the time, being live data, and we could be doing stuff like, we've got a system in place called Waitless across the southwest, which is an application that looks at A&E attendances. So when you arrive into Dorset, I believe you get a message on your mobile phone telling you, oh, you've just arrived into Dorset. Waitless is an app we use for scheduling A&E. So if you should be on the beach and you stand on a nail, look on Waitless and you can find out which hospital is going to be quicker to drive to get treatment from. So we're collecting that data already. So if we can collect that and put it into Splunk, then Matt Hancock can look at the master dashboard and see A&E attendances live. So, and it could be across the whole region as well. So I like the sound of that. That's the future that we can do now.
How many bots are you running on your 5 processes at the moment? Or digital workers, I don't know if you're using the politically correct term.
Oh, well, no, we have bots, and they're named after all of the chief execs for all the organizations. We've humanized, this is my idea, we humanize them. I'd heard from a lot of other people that if you give them personalities, people start associating with them.
It's true, they do.
They do, and it's great. So we only have 5 at the moment. It's the initial package. We've got 3 development bots as well. So over the next few years, as we get more and more processes, we'll obviously probably each organization is going to end up with 5 each. Have
you thought about your managing your utilization? So for example, you mentioned about the COVID testing. So you can just imagine the volumes of tests per day. Have you given much thought in terms of we use bench bots? So we had one on the sideline. So if you're using Splunk, even better, like Jonathan was saying, if you can suddenly see utilization going up to 90-odd%, you can instigate BenchBot or BenchBot
Right.
1, whatever his name is, Bernard, and he can come in and help. So
we've got we've got the Blue Prism Cloud. So we've got the IADA, which is controlling all of the bots. So if I have a queue, say we've got TimBot. Tim is the CEO of the CCG. Any processes we use in the CCG will prioritize on TimBot. But with COVID testing, I could be making use of the GP bot, which is Forbes, and Tim as well as a backup. So we can say this queue is high priority, maybe all 5 bots could service it, but prioritize Forbes first, then Tim, and then the others, bring them in as and when the thresholds get to a certain point. So
you're managing that through your soon to be COE?
Well, this is automatic, really. I mean, we're just at the moment building it to say that, say with antibody testing, we'd say that is across the whole ICS project. So we can quite happily task any of the bots. So the reason for naming the bots after this chief execs was with the Dorset Healthcare, for example, all of their developers can work on whatever processes they like, and we'll say, you prioritize everything on EugeneBot. If you have a problem and you're running out of bandwidth, we'll know about it already, and then we can look at maybe using TimBot, because that'll probably be used less than anything else, and etc. So the queues can be serviced by multiple workers.
Do you envisage I call it bot real estate, but growing to hundreds, or are you trying to maintain it at a small amount for now?
I'm not sure how big we're going to get. I know that Darren's been working for 2 years at East Suffolk. He's currently saving, I think, about 60,000 hours a year, and he's still got the original 5 bots, and I think he's just got another one. But I think they only cost us, is it 15 or 19 grand per bot per year. So at the drop of a hat, we can just ask for another bot and they just pop it in. So I don't think we're going to get to hundreds. So I don't think we're going to be as big as a sort of some of the insurance companies or whatever, but we could do. Have to see, I suppose.
Thanks, Paul.
I was just going to say, so I've never used Blue Prism in the cloud. So is there some data issues with it, or did you sort of sail through or do you not pass data into the cloud? Or
yeah, I mean, patient data in the cloud has been an issue for some time, and before I was doing the architecture for the automation, I was a senior infrastructure at CCG. So we had to go through the process of doing a DPIA for patient data within Azure. I was always pushing that we should get to the cloud as fast as possible. I think now they've just replaced some of the servers on-prem, but we don't have anybody working in the offices anymore, and it's unlikely that we will ever again. Some of the office space we've got at the CCG, we've lent out to the admin staff at the hospitals, so they can come and work there, and their admin spaces are being set up, or were set up, as emergency areas for COVID patients. So yes, it's sorry, I've lost track now. I was just waffling away.
Yeah, no, it's about the data sovereignty in the cloud.
Oh yeah, sorry, that's the DPIAs. So yeah, so the way we have to do it, we've got 2 security people. We've got one person who looks after the DPIAs, one person who's the general security, asking general questions. What are you doing with patient data? It's all in Azure, so it ticks the box. So we have an overarching DPIA says patient data in Azure is safe. Our tenancy is Europe-based or UK-based, whichever one it is for that. And every time we come up with a new project that needs like COVID testing, we have to fill in a small DPIA which says, oh, we're going to use this for COVID testing. The data is going to be stored here. Refer back to the overarching DPIA for that.
And the Blue Prism service is just sat on Azure as a fully managed service they consume.
Exactly, yeah. So it's the CCG's IT people are excellent, but none of them have any experience of providing clinical patient-facing services. So they're not 24/7. They do have people on call, but it was key that these processes are going to be used by hospitals. So I had to have the managed system at the back end, and Blue Prism provided that for us. So that ticked all the boxes from the security point of views and the sort of keeping the systems up and running.
And I guess most of your systems, but by the sound of it, they're not critical in-band systems, are they? They're kind of, if it doesn't work, does it?
Well, it will become more critical with the electronic referrals. But yeah, hopefully we're never in that situation. But we've got they've built the cloud presence for us with multi-tenancy, multi-rack. So it's going to be a big issue in Azure to take us down. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, and if it's managed by Blue Prism, I guess it makes sense.
Exactly. Their support has been superb. And they support everything. It's not just sort of infrastructure issues. You can just ask them a question. Like, I've got an outstanding issue with Twilio sending SMSs. And I'm used to ring up a support people who tell you how to do it. These guys say, do you want us to do it for you? Yeah, fine, go off and do it. So they just fix it for us. So they're excellent.
Cool.
Cool.
How are you managing the operations of these 5 robots? Have you got somebody sat there watching them, or are you doing it amongst the team? How have you got dashboards?
Yeah, I mean, if we get any sort of errors occurring, you mean during the processing?
Yeah. Have you got someone sitting there watching Blue Prism?
No.
No. Okay.
No. So we have myself and any of the automation team will get messages to let us know if a process has failed with a termination. We get the message being sent back to us as well with more details. We're now trying, as part of I think your earlier question about how are we maintaining standards with the exception handling and stuff. We're getting people to go through the process of learning at the Blue Prism University how to handle exceptions, and then Darren gave us some clues as to use the resume process and try doing the following. He gave us examples. This is how you would like sort of manage this exception, and the very last resort is to send a message back to somebody saying you couldn't do it. But if it was, say we take the example of a patient being referred from a GP and their name was spelt wrong, but the NHS number was right. The hospital system could be different. I said could be, it's more likely would be different. They're not connected. So the spelling could be totally different. The referral doesn't match up with the patient record. The artificial intelligence in Blue Prism, you can train it to learn. So if Stephen spelt with a PH and not a V, but the date of birth, the address and the NHS number matches, it will ask the process owner, who is the person who used to do the job, is this right? Is this spelling incorrect? And you go, yes, it is. And then the process can then carry on and it will resubmit it. So that's the sort of level that we're going to be building into it. We want the process owner to be only very occasionally contacted to say something didn't work. If a process terminates and stops dead, then it's not a valid process. I would like all processes to self-heal if possible, or at least notify their operator very, very rarely.
Yeah, there's things like if you've hit the same exception 5 times in a row, then send an email, terminate the process.
Yeah.
So I just wondered how you were handling that if you haven't got somebody sitting there watching Blue Prism, or you just built it by emails. And
yeah, we do it by emails, or in fact, the first thing I built was sending adaptive cards in Microsoft Teams.
Okay.
I'm very, very keen on Teams. We put it in place in August 2016. So we were one of the first healthcare organizations to get it set up. And I'm actually on the board or advisory board for Microsoft in Seattle as one of the 28 members of different organizations we work on different projects within Microsoft Teams. And we basically say, this is what we want. And Gaten Asombu, who is the guy who is the team's god, he created the whole thing himself, and he's going to be very important in the future of Microsoft. He's brilliant. We speak to him quite regularly, and he'll come back and give us lots of information. So Teams was very key. So the first process I did was we got involved with how to write adaptive cards and whatever, and I get instant notifications just pop up to say this is the error. And with an adaptive card, you can have a button on it. So rather than just an email, you can click the button and it just performs a process. So it could be a retry, or it could be, yeah, go ahead with that process. So eventually we'll get to that point.
Yeah, so you have the Microsoft bots working with Blue Prism bots.
Yes, yeah. And that was because I was doing logic apps and stuff before and we had a healthcare bot we were playing with as well, but that was more American, and there's a few things that were a bit sort of odd, but I was very keen to carry on working with Blue Prism, but then interface into the sort of logic app process as well. And with Teams, it's superb. The two things go together brilliantly. Also blockchains, something I've always been passionate about mostly trying to make money out of them, but that's never going to happen. So I'm still working in the NHS, but using the blockchain technology to develop apps and linking that with automation gives you what they would call hyper automation. So say for our contracting teams, building a blockchain based contract between Dorset County Hospital and the CCG with all of the minutiae of every single process, we could be giving micropayments to them rather than having a team of people sitting there every month clicking a button and go, yeah, pay the invoice. So, in fact, I got a message through from the SBS team, NHS today. They want a meeting in September to discuss the same process. So, with any luck, we'll be the first to do hyper automation in the NHS. Fingers crossed.
Have you thought about like supervisor bots?
Supervisor bots.
A supervisor bot, one process to rule them all.
Oh, okay. Oh, interesting. Well, that just polices them.
You can just run one process. You need another database, and you need some sort of cron scheduling. You need a way of putting metadata against that process, linking it back into the Blue Prism process by the ID. But the cron generates a list of the processes and the times they should run, and then so you've got a farm of 20 bots. They just take the next one from the queue, which is the next process to run. Is that process time due to run now, or is it postponed? He'll just wait, and what they do then is handshake each other. So fire SQL off back at the Blue Prism database, checking for the last time it's logged,
right?
And it populates a dashboard and things. That's something I've had. When you start getting to tens and 20, the tens of robots, I've had like support desks of 8 people, 7 till 7, just sat there as this report run, as this kicked off. But
Gavin, is that like sort of orchestrator in UiPath? Have you used that before? Is it a similar thing with the queues and that type of thing?
So in Blue Prism, it's all encased in one thing. In UiPath, you've got to get orchestrated robot and studio, but Blue Prism is all together. So you're just looking at the control room. It's much more user-friendly, Blue Prism, as I find, to UiPath.
So that's IADA, isn't it?
No, it's just a control, because you were talking about Blue Prism Cloud, which is old Autonomy. Yeah. And Autonomy just run Blue Prism. I don't know what they call it, but it's the control room. But this one is a higher level than that. So I could have a Blue Prism farm, I could have a UiPath farm, and I could have them sharing the same queue of processes. And if that process fails, it can then go and raise tickets in your systems. And that's how I did it at CGI. That's how I got around having so many people.
Yeah.
After the robots, I got it down to half a developer's time for the whole week, because the bot would actually go raise his own ticket, put the logs in, the last, say, 10 logs, the screenshot, and then there's a ticket raise, goes to the development team. So it just takes that first, the first step of triage out, gives you all the details.
That's a good idea. I know that the IADA system, which is the sort of, it sounds a bit like that, but I don't know. I haven't seen it do any of those processes, but that manages the sort of the bots and the queues and stuff like that. That does all the sharing out. Yeah. You could run an automation on that on IADA, so it's worth. I'll have to investigate that. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Any other questions at all?
We are coming up to 4 o'clock. Actually, it's gone really quickly.
Good.
So yeah, no, if anyone's got any more questions, then we can wrap it up. Good. Thanks everyone for coming.
That's great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah.
Thank you. Join me on LinkedIn if you want to pass on any info and keep in touch.
I might ask you about Teams. We're just about to start our journey on Teams, believe it or not. So I might give you a nudge on that.
Do that. Yeah, we sit on release code 1.5, so we see stuff coming into Teams before Microsoft internal see it. So
okay,
cool.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. That was really interesting.
Excellent.
Thanks, Paul.
Interesting.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye.